Good day, fellow champions of inclusion. I am Aaron, and this is the Inclusive Dad podcast, where we explore inclusion and make it practical. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me in exploring ways we can create a more inclusive world together. You are important, you matter, and you can make a difference. Today, my guest is Brooke Garren. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Can you just start us off by telling me a little bit about yourself?
My name is Brooke Garren. I am an autistic ADHD and dyslexic business owner. I am an LCSW, that is a licensed clinical social worker here in Illinois. I own Uniquely You Behavioral Health, which is a neurodivergent affirming care practice. We currently have mental health and occupational therapy and are continuing to intentionally grow the services that we offer. And I am also the owner of Affirming Minds Coaching and Consulting, which is a coaching and consulting business specifically focused on helping to create neurodivergent affirming workplaces, kind of past that, typical ADA situation, and helping business owners to understand the ADA and those kind of stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What is your definition of inclusion?
Yeah. So I knew this one was coming, and that is such a big question. I think the short version is that really inclusion is creating spaces where people are able to be supported and without masking. So removing those barriers, be it sensory, financial, emotional, systematic, so that people can truly just show up as themselves and be met with curiosity and not judgment or expectation. I think it's more than just this lovely idea, right? It's something that we have to intentionally be building into every system, every conversation, and every choice that we're making. So that's my short version.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
When were you diagnosed with ADHD and autism? As a child, or?
Yeah, so my ADHD was diagnosed somewhere around 8th grade. And then I was diagnosed with autism and dyslexia actually in adulthood. It's very interesting because there was like a story growing up that I was always told, like, oh, you didn't talk until you were 2. And, we had to take you to the doctor because we thought you were deaf. And I was like, these are all of the signs. I'm so confused. And they were like, you're not deaf. You just don't talk. And I'm like, how did this get missed? The 90s of it all, I suppose.
Yeah.
I wasn't diagnosed until I was an adult, but there were plenty of signs that I suppose we just brushed past. Yeah.
You describe your approach as neurodivergent affirming. What does that actually look like in practice for therapists, schools, or workplaces?
Yeah. So I think first and foremost, being neurodiversity affirming is that we are not pathologizing neurodifferences. So instead of seeing, particularly my clinic focuses on ADHD, autism, sensory differences, OCD, those types of things. But the neurodivergent umbrella, I would be remiss if I didn't identify that is a whole host of neurotypes. They can be innate, like autism and ADHD, and they can be acquired, like a TBI or, a substance use disorder or even dementia, right? But specifically when Uniquely You Behavioral Health is talking about neurodivergent affirming, a lot of our focus is around that autism, ADHD, and sensory differences. So we're not looking at them as deficits. We're looking at them as natural variations of how we are as people, and really are focusing on helping our clients to navigate the world without masking and sacrificing their needs, unless that masking is, required. So it's really more of a masking because you're choosing to, not a masking because you've just put on this mask and you've never been able to take it off.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Can you explain briefly what masking is in your words?
Yeah. So masking is, kind of, I think in some ways we all do it, right? Regardless of neurotype. So who I am around grandma is going to be different than who I am with my best friend, right? And so we really want to be able to intentionally turn that on and off. I know how I'm going to be, and I know the type of energy and regulation that it takes to be who I am when I'm, for this example, with grandma versus when I'm with my best friend, right? I probably am masking almost none at all with my best friend. And I'm probably, if I know that grandma doesn't like beep booping with my mouth, I'm going to really focus on not doing that, right? And so that's a different type of regulation. But the masking that we really are focusing on is when people are not able to recognize or take off that grandma mask even when they're with best friend, right? And they want to, and they're exhausted. And then, all of that leads to burnout and life dissatisfaction and all of those other things we work on in therapy. But that's really, I think, the easiest way to explain it so that, people kind of understand it regardless of their neurotype. Yeah.
Yeah. I like the part of your explanation where, I think we all do that. I know my mom doesn't like swearing, so I don't use swear words around her, but you are right. Like, if that's kind of what I naturally do is swear, it's not healthy for me to like try to not do it everywhere, because then it just
100%.
a lot of work. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I too am a sailor.
How has your lived experience as an autistic and ADHD woman shaped the way you show up as a leader and a clinician?
Yeah. So really it shapes too how we understand neurodivergent affirming therapy. It's also neurodivergent affirming leadership and workspace and co-working. So a lot of it is I'm just honest about who I am, how I am, and that allows my staff to be the same way. We do what is called the DISC assessment. So it's a personality assessment, and we do it because it's helpful to. We know that there are so many different variations of an autistic person or an ADHD person, and so me just saying that I'm autistic and ADHD doesn't necessarily give you much information about me, other than that there are going to probably be some quirks, right? So we use this to be able to kind of have a shorthand for, hey, this is how you're likely to receive information, then how I'm likely to give it, right? And so I think that if we were not neurodiversity affirming and I was unaware of how people receive my engagement, I would probably not have that. Right. I would probably just try and strong arm my way through things. So I think like first and foremost, it's just starting the relationships with, hey, we're all going to interact differently. And it's really important we talk about it.
Right. Yeah. How about for you? How long have you always like shared up front that information about you, or how did that work for you?
Yeah. So I would say that interacting with me, pretty quickly that there is something. So I don't exactly do a great job burying the lead. And a lot of that is that I think I personally have been very lucky to have not necessarily grown up in a situation where masking was needed or required. My mom, she had plenty of her own, issues when I was growing up. But I will say, like, one thing that she did really well was there was no expectation. It was just like, that's Brooke. I'm not going to argue. If she's wearing the Barney sweatshirt again, she's wearing the Barney sweatshirt. Like, it's what she's wearing. And so that has been something that I think I've been able to just exist in the world the way that I want to. And I really think it wasn't until I was older and like really college that I started to recognize the true difference of me. And so, I'm not sure that I talked about ADHD a ton in college. But I think in my professional life, I've always been very clear about I'm ADHD. And then once I got the autism diagnosis, most people were like, that totally tracks and makes sense. But I think, I think it's really important to reduce that stigma as well and talk about, how, especially autism, because of the way that our world kind of understands it, we come in different packages. And we come in different support needs on any given day. And, being able to be open about my neurotype then allows me to be able to, come into our relationship and say, hey, Erin, I know we were going to do XYZ today. I think that I have enough bandwidth for only Z.
Yep.
And, then we can have that open dialogue instead of me forcing my way through it or not doing a good job at it, or you're feeling like, wow, she's pretty cranky today.
Right.
And it's because I just don't have regulation. And so I think that like that for me is also really beneficial so that I can show up the way I want to in our relationship. And then you can do the same in return.
Yeah. Yeah, as you were talking, I was thinking about that because, in being like a therapist and you have the client, and I'm kind of into similar stuff where I do some adult mental health in-home work too, and there's always this line about like how much of my personal life do I share because you don't want to share too much, but I feel like if somebody knows I have a daughter with a disability, that like makes a huge difference in how they trust me. They know I'm gone through some stuff. So it's always this line of how much do I share versus how much don't I share. So I'm glad that I can see where it is for sure beneficial. I have some clients where, just sharing with the parent of an adult that they're the guardian of, like, hey, I've gone through some similar stuff. It breaks down some barriers. They trust you more. They can, share things that they're going through and makes the whole relationship better. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, I think it's important to know as the person sitting on the other side of the couch that the person that I'm entrusting a lot of faith into doesn't just know my life experience from a book.
Yep.
Right? They know what it's like to stay up late. They know what it's like to try and navigate the doctors. They know what it's like to regulate. They're able to kind of truly walk that walk. Yep. And of course, we'll never fully understand another person's experience, but we can understand it in such a different way than if we had just read that book, right? I think it's so powerful for you to be able to show up into a room and say, hey, I might not know exactly what you're going through, but I've been through some shit too. And that's, I think that really, like you said, can bring those guards down.
Yeah, absolutely. So what inspired you to start both Uniquely You Behavioral Health and Affirming Minds Coaching and Consulting?
Yeah. So Uniquely You Behavioral Health really was created for one little boy that I had been working with I'd been working with him for 3 years prior to starting the company, but I knew very shortly into working with him with a different company that his needs weren't met, his family's needs weren't met, and I was going to do something about that. And so Uniquely You Behavioral Health was really born out of that recognition that there are so many families who are not getting to enter spaces where they're understood. They're having to enter spaces where they're trying to explain behaviors or the way that someone is showing up that day, or an inability to show up that day because of maybe what happened overnight. And the amount of time that families were spending in different waiting rooms because mental health therapy is at one location, speech is at another, OT is at another. And that's why we're really trying to have and be a true multidisciplinary practice so that families can get minimally an evening back, right? Mm-hmm. They can just come here for 1 or 2 nights a week, and they're coming to a space they know that they're comfortable, they know that they're accepted. And, while little kid is getting therapy, mom and dad can get therapy. Siblings can get therapy because we understand the dynamics that their family experiences in ways that other practices don't. And so that's really where Uniquely You became from. And the name came from me just really wanting him to be able to be him. When he is regulated and happy and accepted, he is just the most beautiful, spirited human on the entire planet. And then, of course, through a lot of doing this, I really recognized that in a way it was also for me, and my desire to be able to enter a therapy room and someone understand, and someone not be like, oh, well, you went to school and blah, 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 so it must not be that hard. And I'm like, that's a lot of regulation. So that's really where, Uniquely You came from. So Affirming Minds really then came from all of the people that I work with at Uniquely You, and recognizing that there are so many opportunities for people like myself, for people like my therapist, because we intentionally hire therapists who are neurodivergent or have neurodivergent family members. And so I really recognize it is completely possible to own and run a business that's neurodivergent affirming for the people who work there. And being able to understand, right? If your daughter has something going on, you're able to shift your schedule and you can still get your stuff done. And we have to be able to be open to that and be able to go into companies and just talk about 9 times out of 10, it's mindset, right? Mm-hmm. It's just, hey, yes, you've done it that way this whole time. But do we have to? Right. And I think, so that's really where Uniquely You and Affirming Minds came from.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, as you were talking, I was like, you don't seem like a person that just likes to do things because that's how they always been done. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same way, where it's like, okay, why do we do it this way? Well, we always have. I'm like, well, why are we copying and pasting information from a case note into another thing? Because we need to. Can't you change the case note so we don't have to run a report instead of duplicating work? Come on now. Right. Yeah, but then you're like, apparently not everybody thinks like that. So then you got to give people some grace.
Yes, yeah. This is true. They're like, well, that's just how it's done. I'm like,
yeah, for sure.
That's so silly.
It is.
Yeah.
What do you wish more people, especially professionals, understood about neurodivergent individuals?
I think I've touched on it a few times, but I think really that we come in different packages, and the package that I come in today may be different than the package I come in tomorrow or, a month from now. And being able to ask questions and be curious and flexible. I think being able to understand that when a person has their accommodations and their supports in place, they're going to look a lot different than somebody who doesn't have those accommodations in place. I was recently talking with a client who was seeking disability, and I, had to tell her, you have to think when you're answering the questions, this is if you had no accommodations, because if you go back to work, you don't have the accommodation of a midday nap to be able to finish your day. And she's like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. I'm like, right. So yes, you could totally do work from maybe 9 to noon,
Right.
but from noon to 2, you really don't even exist in your own body.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because of the accommodations that you've, allowed yourself to engage in. And so, it's just like those kind of things of give yourself the accommodations, support your clients in identifying accommodations. And I think reducing the stigma around accommodations, show your clients maybe the accommodations that you provide yourself, whether it's, I literally have 3 different drinks on my desk right now. Whatever it is that you need, do that. Mm-hmm. And support your clients in that as well.
Yeah, that's great. How do you balance being a visionary business owner, clinician, and someone who also honors their neurodivergent needs?
Whew. Yeah. I think that there are days and weeks that I do better at this than not. I think the biggest thing is that I really pay attention to my energy levels, really identify when is the best time for me to work. I think a lot of times when you are a business owner, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, you own the business. Why are you working so early? And there was a weird feeling that I had to work through around the societal expectation of, well, you're the business owner, you don't have to go in until 10. And my brain being like, right, but what are we doing until 10? And so I just come in, I get up, I do my morning routine, and I'm usually in most mornings before 7 a.m. And, a lot of people would be like, oh my gosh, that's so early, but it's just what works for me. And then I'm done around, maybe 4 p.m., 5 p.m., depending on the day. And it's what works for me. And allowing myself to go into hyperfixations. And allowing myself to, do a deep dive on something and put it down, right? So that's kind of where that like visionary, creative comes in of like, you're totally allowed to like map out this entire project, but you also have to put that down, which is great for the ADHD dopamine of it all. Yeah. And there are times where I just go off the grid. And I'm like, hi, I don't exist anymore. Don't even call me if the whole thing burns down, because I'm not a firefighter. So I'll deal with it when I get back. And I have really amazing staff that allow that too. So building the supports that I need that understand she's going to get squirrely if we don't let her disappear. And they want that, right? They don't want a squirrely person running this place. They're like, yeah, go do whatever it is. Go talk to a tree. Bye. And that's what I do.
Yeah. Yeah. You've spoken about creating truly accessible care, not just financially, but emotionally and functionally. What does that look like?
Yeah. I think that looks like our spaces. So in creating spaces, like the room I'm in right now, the big light doesn't get turned on. I've got like 7 lamps in here that can get turned on and off depending on what I need. We create our spaces so that if you are a mover and a shaker during your sessions, we have trampolines, we have bouncy chairs, we have really whatever it is that you need to be able to engage with us. We make sure we do our absolute best to make sure that our systems, be it paperwork or whatever that is as approachable and understandable as possible. Of course, we are working still, because we accept insurance in that medical model, and there are some things that unfortunately we have to do, even if they are silly. And that is part of our ability to be accessible. We don't want to be accessible just for those who can afford us in private pay. So we do have to, accept some of those things that we're just like, this is a little wild, but to engage in our mission of accessibility, we have to do those things.
Yeah. Earlier you spoke, it sounded to me like you were saying that if a child is like in therapy, the parents can also like be in therapy. Is that at your facility? Like they can both, like the parent can go to a therapist at your place as well?
Yeah, so we have therapists who work across the lifespan. So we have, I think, 4 child or adolescent focused therapists, and the rest of our therapists, focus on maybe young adults up to, even working with grandparents and things like that. So yes, we're very intentional about having that support, because we believe that, Aaron, if you come to us, even if your kid's not coming here, your life experience, it's to us important that the person sitting across from you has a understanding potentially of what it's like to stay up all night with a kiddo, potentially of understanding the immediate need, drop everything, nothing else matters, we have to go to the hospital, and we will be there for who knows how long. And so those are the kind of things that that's just a different life experience. That's a different anxiety. That's a different depression than the typical anxiety and depression, right? There's the approaches that we're going to use with you are different. CBT and talking about, the validity of that worry is kind of BS. Like, that's actually a little offensive. The worry is so real, right? And so that's why we do that, so that, you could come even if your daughter doesn't come here,
right?
And have that support.
Yeah, that's great. What are some common mistakes you see organizations make when trying to support neurodivergent staff or clients, and how can they do better?
Yeah. I think often companies create systems that are, or initiatives that are more for show than actual cultural change. Having a sensory room, but there is no understanding of what that's used for. If it's a calm room and people are consistently in there chatting, it's not being honored for what it is. Maybe Joe makes fun of the person who uses it all the time. That's not a culture. Like, that's not a cultural change. That's a Band-Aid that might actually be making things worse. And so really, I think the biggest mistake that, be it a therapist, a company, a school, is saying that they're neurodivergent affirming, not completely really understanding the depth of what that means, and then not changing the undercurrent around that, continuing to subscribe to neurotypical norms and expectations. And it turns into a little bit of like a gaslight situation of, we're neurodivergent affirming, but also we're not going to change anything.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes complete sense. Yeah, that's a big thing too, like talking about or bad mouthing clients or staff around other people and where everybody can hear it. That's happens way too much.
It does. Yeah.
How do you help parents or caregivers understand and support neurodivergent kids in affirming non-pathologizing ways?
Yeah. I think one big way that uniquely You Behavioral Health does that is that so many of our staff are neurodivergent. We're really able to truly show and demonstrate, hey, with the proper supports, people can be really happy. We don't have to, I have one best friend and I have my husband. And if we enter the therapy room and my treatment goal is to engage and have more friends, I'm going to be so unhappy with that treatment goal because I really, really love my best friend and I really, really love my husband. And I don't feel the need to get more people like that type of relationship in my life. I love my, coworkers, and we'll chat and we'll go to lunch, but I'm probably not going to stay at their house or have them stay at mine. I'm not going to go on vacation with them. It's different. And so I think just helping people to understand that your life experience as a parent may not be what your child wants. They may just want what they want. And if they don't want a friend who doesn't want to talk about volcanoes, well, let's just find them a friend that wants to talk about volcanoes. That's fine. Right. There is another kid out there who wants to talk about volcanoes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that also brings up another point, even with like IEPs or IEP goals, like make sure that you're having the kid give their input. Like, what do you want? Like, okay, as a parent, you can come up with lots of great ideas, but if that's not what the kid wants, it's not going to be successful. So really trying to help them explain what they want, like if I don't want more friends, then why are we trying to get more friends? What do you want?
Yes. Yeah. And understanding that maybe even if I do want friends, that might be a goal 4 or 5 steps down, right? The path. I may have to work on 4 other skills and hit 4 other goals before I get to that. And so helping to reframe that we're getting there, but to be able to cross the road, we've got to do a couple things in between to get there safely. Otherwise, we might end up just masking, or we might end up not being able to have good, true relationships because we're just going to be like, oh, look, I'm playing with Aaron. Look at me. And then it's not maybe exactly the friendship that I was wanting, but we checked a box.
Yeah, for sure. What gives you hope right now in the neurodiversity movement, and where do you think we still have work to do?
I would say what gives me hope is that there are a lot of folks that are self-advocates and they're not quiet about it. And I think that professionals are doing a better job at listening. I think that we are spending more time and money in researching neurodivergence and understanding it as a neurodifference rather than something to fix or change. And that's really, I think positive. I think in the realm of what can we do better, I think kind of almost the opposite of what I said. I think that we need to do a better job listening. We need to do a better job of, just because we've always done it that way doesn't mean we need to keep doing it that way. I think helping to support individuals and families in not just acceptance or awareness of things, but the inclusion and that true inclusion. I think that, what you're doing, being able to sit and talk about this and discuss how inclusion is so important, right? It doesn't matter how aware we are if you're still sitting on the sidelines. It doesn't matter if I accept you and think you're super cool, but you still don't get to play with us. Right. I think that is really where we need to take that next step and go to the inclusion and evaluate the way we've always been doing things so that people can be included on a true cultural, societal level, and not just, 1 month a year we are really cool about it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, for me, I like talking about it, but still it seems like even more so recently, it's like bringing up just the word inclusion can give you, kickback on social media. So it's even having to like decide, pick your spots. Where do I want to talk about it more? Where do I not want to talk about it? So we're in interesting times for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What is one tip you can share to help our listeners be more inclusive today? So just something everybody can start doing today to be more inclusive.
I think the thing that people, you don't need to really know anything. You don't need to research anything. Show up in the world, in your relationships with curiosity. Show up wanting to be curious about the person you're talking to, wanting to know more about their lived experience, about how you can support their identity, how you can support who they are as a person. So really just fully embracing curiosity about your fellow human and leave that judgment behind. Show up curious of why are we doing the systems that we're doing? Really being able to have that curiosity. One, it's a really fun way to engage with the world, but also it allows you to have questions or think about things when you're talking with somebody in a way that is different than maybe you would have if you hadn't shown up with that curiosity and you showed up knowing or assuming. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Where's the best place for everybody to connect with you?
Yeah, so I am on LinkedIn as Brooke Garren. We have uniquelyyoubehavioralhealth.com. We're also on socials as Uniquely You Behavioral Health. So we've got a Facebook, an Instagram, and a somewhat used TikTok. We've got younger folks on staff now, so they're helping with that situation a little bit more. And then Affirming Minds Coaching and Consulting. I officially launched that in the very end of May. So still working on the website, but I do have a Facebook page for it and Instagram for it. And the website will be launched very soon.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Is there anything else you want to talk about that we haven't? Seems like we covered a lot.
No, I don't think so. I think, your listeners are, I think, ahead of the game. And I think, just sharing your podcast and, this podcast and just showing up for whether it's the neurodivergent population or it's, physically different people or just whomever it is, just show up for them, talk about it. Talking about it reduces that stigma. And so, yeah, I think that's really the biggest thing is just keep doing what you're doing, but maybe do it louder.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. Ready for the last question?
Okay.
Do you like Spam lunch meat, yes or no?
No.
No. I live near Austin, Minnesota, where they make Spam and where the Spam Museum is located, so I ask all my guests.
Yes. No, I am. I have very particular set of foods for texture purposes.
Okay.
So yeah, I am a very fun person to go and find food with.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on today.
Yes, thank you. I really enjoyed it.
To those listening, thank you for allowing me to be part of your journey. It is truly an honor. Please join the podcast newsletter by clicking on the link in the episode description to keep up with the latest episodes. Together, we can make the world more inclusive. Until next time, stay empowered and be a champion for inclusion.